As of 2023, Donald Trump is said to be worth more than $2.6 billion. At least, that's what he wants us to think.
It's very simple. You're a nasty person, I'll tell you.
Trump's wealth has gone into question multiple times over the past few years, and it's all because of how secretive he's gotten. But in this video, we're pulling apart the layers of lies that Donald Trump has spewed and finally answering the question, is Trump really a billionaire? Stick around till the end because the answer might shock you. Trump's wealth. Donald John Trump is the former president of the United States, but before he was the president of America, he was one of the world's most famous businessmen. Donald Trump was born on June 14, 1946, with a golden, diamond-speckled spoon in his mouth. That's because his father, Fred Trump, was an amazing businessman with a booming real estate empire under his name. After graduating from the Wharton School of the University of Pennsylvania in 1968, he immediately hit the ground running and started work under his dad, preparing himself for the eventual passing on of the family empire to him. Under Fred's wing, Donald Trump would be awarded multiple real estate projects to handle, each one making sure that Donald Trump took most of the money while doing the least amount of work. One could argue that the money that Donald Trump had at this time was all thanks to his loving father's efforts. Once his father was ready and willing to pass on the empire, Donald Trump took the reins and charged onward, leading the empire to multiple successful investments. His investments through the Trump empire included the construction of numerous high-profile buildings, including Trump Tower in New York City, Mar-a-Lago in Florida, Trump National Doral in Miami, and Trump International Hotel in Washington, D.C. Soon, he also expanded the Trump empire to not just real estate buildings, but also luxury resorts, golf courses, hotels, and casinos. Donald was on the way to becoming the biggest celebrity businessman, but his presidential run would shed some light on some of his worst practices. The presidential era. Everyone in the country has to pay taxes. It doesn't matter how rich or how poor you are, you had to pay taxes. In fact, this is one of the easiest and simplest hurdles any presidential candidate has to jump through, but not for former President Donald Trump. During his 2016 presidential campaign, Donald Trump broke with a long-standing tradition by not releasing his tax returns to the public. This raised a lot of eyebrows among his peers, leading to the public pressing him to make his tax returns, to which he says, "Hey, it's coming." And oh boy, was he lying. It took over 6 years of trials and filibustering before Donald Trump would receive an official court order for him to release his taxes. Donald Trump was so insistent on his taxes not being released that he even appealed for a retrial, but the government had had enough and wanted answers. But to the surprise of no one, Trump's taxes raised much more questions than answers. Tax tales. The first abnormality the IRS found was that Trump actually had negative income through most of the years included in the statement, showing that Trump really was losing money of up to $31 million through some years while gaining a few million in some years. While it's normal for some businesses to have good and bad years, that normally doesn't happen to Donald Trump, who has a well-diversified investment portfolio. The restaurant and golf industry don't usually plummet together. While the income and loss of Trump throughout the years was a red flag, there was something much more unsettling about the tax report, namely the fact that there was little to no tax being paid. And when we mean no tax, we mean no tax, with Trump paying a grand total of $0 in taxes during 2020 to 2021. When you pay no tax, that usually means one of three things. Either you're broke, you're guilty of tax evasion, or maybe both. The report alleged that Trump paid only $750 in federal income taxes in both 2016 and 2017, and that he paid no income taxes in 10 of the previous 15 years. The tax evasion claim should come to no surprise because Trump himself openly admits to it, claiming that he's found a way to cheat the system because he's smart.
Wrong.
That is absolutely
Wrong.
And he legitimately was.
Will you
Who
shut
is your,
up, man?
listen, who,
In some ways, at least, Trump found a loophole in the system where he could claim multiple expenses to lessen his taxes paid, something which the IRS are paying close attention to because most expenses in cases like these aren't really expenses at all. Take, for example, Fred Trump's scheme, where in order to funnel profits to the Trump enterprise without going through tax, he would purchase properties at exorbitant prices and then sell them back a few years later at a significant loss. All this just to avoid taxes. And this isn't the only thing that the IRS is investigating. The IRS is already following a paper trail of suspicious transactions disguised as different expenses. Trump's actions when it comes to taxes is very similar to what his father was doing in his prime. Like father, like son, eh? But there is one thing that Trump did that his father most likely wouldn't have done. Forbes fraud. Every year, Forbes publishes a list that ranks the 400 wealthiest individuals in the United States. This is called the Forbes 400 list, and Donald Trump wanted so desperately to get in on the list. In fact, Donald Trump was actually one of the lucky few individuals to have been there since the very first published in 1982. And he would be on that list for years to come until 25 years later when he was cut off from the list, falling $300 million short. This drop from the Forbes 400 list immediately drew the eyes of many. Like a vulture to a rotting corpse, everyone began questioning his actual wealth. Everyone wanted to know just how rich Donald Trump was. Many speculated that Donald Trump was actually knee-deep in debt without his father's legacy to drive him forward, while others think that this was just a simple accounting error. But no one could be prepared for the truth behind all this. The truth is that Trump has apparently been misdeclaring the value of his assets just so he would be able to join the list. That's right, Donald Trump's inflated ego couldn't bear to not be included in the list, so he did as his father did and bent the rules just a tiny bit by declaring that his assets were 2,000% more valuable than they were. Easy for Trump to say when he has dedicated accountants ready to crunch the numbers enough so that they'd fit his claims. As if that wasn't embarrassing enough, new recordings of Donald Trump have now resurfaced, wherein Trump could be heard impersonating an imaginary insider by the name of John Barron.
I know somebody that knows, and I think somebody that he trusts and likes. Actresses, people that you write about, just call to see if they can go out with them and think.
All so that he could give journalists fake news.
you're fake news.
But while some would call this an embarrassing attempt at bolstering their ego, the United States government would call this fraud, tricking stockholders in the entire United States Treasury by using the higher valuation of assets to give him access to larger loans and pay less tax. While Trump is great at being a sleazy billionaire, he may not be a great businessman. Bad businessman. While Donald Trump may claim to be a rich, smart man, he is far from being a great businessman. If it weren't for his father's trust fund, Trump's story would be very different. So, is Donald Trump really a billionaire? Well, the answer is a bit complicated. While yes, he is a billionaire because of his diversified investments, his riches may not last very long. With multiple lawsuits on the horizon and the threat of the huge tax evasion fine that will most likely be brought down on him, only time will tell if Trump can still talk his way out of his charges.